Oh, I've told you over and over again. You gotta get both hands around it and make your own plans. Roller coaster is taking over. It's about time. Oh, sing your high on the roller coaster of life. You've got to
Hi, Canada, and you might say we're on location today here in a different room. We have not the best acoustics here, but we're looking at Boston Acoustics. Boston Acoustics A100. I could not get them transported to where I needed to get them to, so I wanted to show these speakers to you. These are two, I love Boston Acoustic speakers, as we've had a few on this channel. Again, I do like this one as well. This is the Boston Acoustics A100. I believe this is Series 1. I don't see a Series 2 written on here. They have a really interesting cabinet, and we'll talk a little bit more about that as we go along here. Yeah, these are a walnut cabinet. They're pretty solidly made. They're really interesting in that Boston Acoustics, they made in this A series, these are sealed boxes, and these sealed boxes had extremely clear bass. So one of the first speakers that I had when I kind of got back into this hobby, I picked up a pair of Boston Acoustics A40s, and it's from the same series, but they were the smaller speakers. Loved them. 13 inches tall with the 6.5-inch woofer. And yeah, I just kind of fell in love with this hobby all over again with those speakers, and also the JBL S26 II. I just started getting back into this again, and yeah, it's not stopped since. It's been a really fun ride and looking at different speakers, and I wanted to feature another Boston Acoustic speaker. These are extremely pretty big and interestingly shaped, let's just say. They are a two-way speaker, so they're quite it's interesting because we'll go a bit more into this after, but they do have an MDF cabinet. It's pretty solidly made. They're about 31 inches tall, but they're only 8 inches deep and 16.5 inches wide, and that depth, like, I think what was meant is that these were not meant to be imposing in the room, so you can still have a large, relatively large sounding speaker, but not too deep, so then you can put them up against the wall because they don't have a port, bass port. They're sealed boxes, as I mentioned, so they're about 3/4 inch MDF board, I estimate around there. There's not a ton of information because there are quite a few different versions of this speaker. This particular speaker has an interesting type of hollow at the very bottom. You might be able to see there's a bit of a platform that was built underneath these speakers. I guess it's kind of like a built-in stand. From this time in the 80s, and speaker, I think these are from the 80s. They had a lot of floor standing speakers, so nowadays we have more floor standing speakers that are more tower shaped, that don't have as large a footprint, as well as, of course, bookshelf speakers, that we have tons of those that we've done on the channel. And these have a 10-inch woofer and a tweeter, and it's pretty interesting that they pair. I noticed the older speakers had the Boston CR9, and they had a large woofer with a tweeter. I have my, of course, newer monitor audio Silver 107Gs, and those have a relatively large, I think, 8-inch woofer with a tweeter as well. And these are two-way speakers that have a large woofer, and sometimes you think maybe they can't catch as much detail that way, but because of the larger woofer maybe not being able to reproduce some of the fine mid-range details that are there. But I can tell you, of course, with the monitor audio, you've heard me speak about the Silver 107G before, and those are fabulous speakers, and they can definitely catch all the mid-range detail, and for its time these are actually not bad either. So pretty impressive. But we'll get into the pluses and minuses here as we go along. So they're not deep speakers. I think they're meant to be more discreet up against a wall. They have very clean bass, and we'll get more into the bass in a minute. We'll start with the tweeter. The tweeter is a 1-inch soft dome, and if you go close up, you can read that it's a polyamide dome tweeter. I do believe they made a few different types of tweeters. This is the woofer is a 10-inch woofer, and this woofer has, it feels like a papery type material. So I would, just go with the Boston A40 had a similar type material as well. The rated impedance is 8 ohms, so it's pretty easy to drive this. It's got a sensitivity about 90 dB, 89, 90 dB, and it's got a frequency response. It says about 39 hertz to about 20 kilohertz or 40 kilohertz, whatever it is. Very well, pretty decent bass. We'll talk a bit more as we go along here. The highs are what I really like about this speaker. I didn't find them too harsh at all. And I didn't find them to be grating as I did a lot of my when I listened to these. I do like them. I had them in my garage for a while. They're pretty nice. I did pair them up here with the Martin Logan Forte amp, which is 50 watts per channel into 8 ohms. I believe we're going to feature that. This is without room correction. This is a room correction Class D amp, so we're going to talk more about that in a future review for the Martin Logan. These had a really nice, I would say, high frequency response. I do like the detail that's there. It's quite excellent, I would say. I'd say it's right on par with my Acoustic Energy Aegis Evo 1s that I had on the channel. Kind of similar type of tweeter. And also the woofer, the mids, I would say the mids are quite well, surprisingly good. And that's not surprising, actually I should say, because Boston Acoustics does quite well with the highs and the mids. And many of the speakers that I've seen, beautiful sounding voices. It seems to be a really good speaker for, rock. I think rock music tends to suit these quite well. But, they pretty much are versatile. You can play many different types of music through them, but I find that rock suits them quite well. The woofer is 10 inches, and I was expecting, when I first got these, I was expecting a bass monster. It's probably the speaker with the biggest woofer that I own, since I have so many bookshelf speakers. And you know what? It's not. It's not a bass monster. It is tight, articulate bass that's happening on this speaker. So take for that what you will. It's a big box, but it's not so big because it's not got a ton of volume, because it's only 8 inches deep. So you're not getting a bass monster. You're getting a sealed, tight, clean bass. And excuse the if you can hear the noise in the background, I apologize for that. I would say that's probably where I was hoping for a bit more, was from the bass. I thought that these could be putting out, with their size and how heavy they are, could be putting out some pretty decent bass. And it's not bad bass, but it's not the amount of bass that I was expecting. So that would be probably my one slight disappointment with these speakers. But overall, the sound is really clean, and it's got a pretty nice mid-range, I would say, that makes up for this lack of bass. It has a more articulate sound, which is pretty nice, I would say. It's got more of that East Coast speaker sound, which it was famous from this era. I've had many different Boston Acoustic speakers, as I mentioned. I do also like the JBLs from this era as well. Very well made speakers, and they're very strong boxes. And drivers, extremely large magnets on these drivers. These are pretty well made. There's a lot of attention to detail that was put in, and pride of workmanship, you can tell with these speakers. So I'd say, yeah, bass, treble, mid-range, soundstage, big. Yeah, pretty big, I would say. Like they cast a pretty wide soundstage. It's just the sound, in my opinion, tilts more towards the colder side than the warmer side, so they pair well. At least, my pair here pairs a bit better with warmer amps like my Marantz PM 6006. It pair a little better with that than say this Martin Logan. I would also say that these are, you know, the imaging, it could be better, but it's not bad. I do think that when the music gets really busy, is maybe a place where these speakers could potentially improve a little bit more. But you know, they're classic speakers. They're quite longer in the tooth at this point. But I really like Boston Acoustics. I love all their speakers. I would say overall, I think they're excellent for their time in general. Boston Acoustics just really made a lot of good speakers. So I gotta say that I think that's all I've got to say today. We are really excited about many of the videos that we have coming up, and we're very excited to see you watching our channel. And if you really like what we're featuring on this channel and you're interested in this hobby, which is our goal to get you interested in this hobby, please subscribe. It would help us a lot. Thank you very much, and looking forward to seeing you next time on Revive Hi-Fi Canada. Bye now.